Welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world. Welcome back, Compassionators, for another episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. Oh my goodness, Mark and I have such a truly inspirational guest with us today, and we are so excited to share him with you all on our podcast. I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Mark, to do the wonderful introductions. Mark.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so thrilled to introduce you all to Dr. Elia Gourgouris. He is known as America's Happiness Doctor. I love that title. He's also the author of the book 7 Paths to Lasting Happiness, which is a best-selling book. It's been translated into 5 languages. He's the co-author of the highly acclaimed book, 7 Keys to Navigating a Crisis. And in the first half of his career, he built a thriving private practice as a clinical psychologist, all through word of mouth, by the way. And before moving on from there, he became an international speaker and an executive coach who works with C-suite leaders. His message is featured in respected publications and media around the world. His positive psychology background, and with his books, keynotes, coaching, and podcast interviews, he has literally helped hundreds of thousands of people, both in their careers and in their personal relationships, to achieve happiness and success. As an inspirational speaker, he frequently presents at international conferences, particularly focusing on happiness, corporate wellness, and mental health. He is the host of the new TV show called The Happy Hour with Dr. Elia, which is on the Mental Health Television Network. And he's producing a documentary feature film with our friend Kevin Smith, who we've had on the podcast, titled For Such a Time as This, which is about the impact of kindness worldwide. He splits his time living between the United States, where he's in Colorado, where he joins us today, and his homeland of Greece in Europe. And we are thrilled that Dr. Elia has carved out some time for us today. Dr. Elia, welcome to the Infuse Compassion podcast.
Mark and Amy, it's a pleasure to be back.
Oh, I am really interested in that transition you made in your career. Yes. In your bio, we talked about how you had this thriving practice as a clinical psychologist, and then you left that behind and went into the happiness business, I guess you could say. Tell us about that transition and maybe even some of the challenges that you faced making that transition.
Thank you for that. And, first of all, I didn't realize how thriving the practice was. When I finally retired and I did some research, I realized that most clinical psychologists, if they do it for 10 years, that's about the average, then they get burned out. And if they see maybe 20 to 25 patient hours per week, that's considered full-time work. Well, I did it for 18 years, and I would see 45, sometimes 50 people per week.
Wow.
To the point where my wife would be like, honey, you're going to have a heart attack. And I'm like kind of arrogant, like, no, I can handle it. I was like, mister, I can handle anything. And oftentimes I would get people who had been to other therapists or clinics and so on, and they would come to me, just reputation-wise, and they'd be like, you are our last hope. My marriage is falling apart. If this doesn't work, I'm getting a divorce or I'm going to commit suicide. So there's a lot of pressure. I felt like I was the last line of defense, basically, to help people find their highest selves and heal and strengthen their relationships. So I would take everybody. I didn't know how to say no. So that's clue number one. Well, for the first 16 years, I'm crushing it. I'm loving it. I'm thriving in it. I'm helping a lot of people. But then at some point, I think the accumulation of all the things that were, and of course, there's confidentiality. You can't share anything of what you hear. So you kind of store it.
Yeah. You carry that burden with you.
Absolutely. And cumulatively, after 16 years and so on, my body started to make some noise. And it started to, by that I mean, I was starting to feel some physical pain. And the physical pain got worse. It took me about, several months. And at some point, you guys, physical pain, just like emotional or mental or spiritual pain, eventually brings you to your knees, like physically. And I'm a spiritual person, so after 6 months of that, I'm like, hey, this isn't working because this is really impacting me. So I asked, God, I mean, that's for me. I'm like, why is this happening to me? And whether you call it the spirit, the Holy Spirit, or your intuition or your higher self, whatever you call that voice, I've always had a great relationship with it. And I get the answers very quickly, but they're usually very short. So the answer that I got to that question was instant in my mind was, Elia, I'm trying to take you in a different direction and you're not listening to me. End quote. And that was it. No other insight. So, you know what I did with that great advice and insight? I ignored it. Normally, I don't ignore it. And as a matter of fact, in the last 35, 40 years of listening to that voice, it's one of the few absolutes in my life that every time I've listened to that voice and acted on it, it has always worked out. However, not being a perfect human being, in that particular case, sometimes I've listened to that voice crystal clear, mind you, and I've ignored it. And in retrospect, I know I ignored it now because I was afraid. Like, what do you mean trying to take me different directions? That's so open-minded. And so when you ignore that voice, guess what happens? Does your life get better or worse?
Oh, I think we've all know the answer to that one.
Amy, you're right. It doesn't get any better. So now, fast forward 6 months go by. Well, now the pain has increased to the point where it's almost on a daily basis. I've been in and out of hospitals, like emergency rooms, just dying basically. And they're inconclusive. I do all kinds of tests, like ultrasounds and x-rays, the whole thing. And they can't figure it out, but my pain is real. So now it's really impacting my life because I'm like a year into it. So now I'm back on my knees again. Now I'm desperate though. And I'm like, okay, why is this happening to me? And the voice repeats, Elia, because I told you before, I'm trying to take you in a different direction. You're not listening to me. And I want you to spread the light to a lot more people, end quote, which I think is a very interesting thing. And if you follow my trajectory in my life, that has happened 100 times over. But then the final thing was, because I'm still hesitant, I'm still in fear mode. I'm like, okay, you want me to spread a lot more people. How do I make money doing that? Because I'm thinking of like the natural me, like how to provide for my family. I still have young kids at home. And then the final statement was, and if you don't, I'm going to call you home by the time you're 50. I was 42 years old at the time.
Wow.
Now, my mom passed away when I was 51, and my dad when he was 65. So I don't have a lot of longevity in my genes in a lot of ways. So the number 50 was very symbolic, and it caught my attention. And I'm like, well, I can't like depart this life in about 8 years. I got young kids. I have a lot to live for. So therefore, I went out and talked to my wife, and I said, listen, honey, this is what I got from upstairs, and I need to change my life. But it's not easy to shut down a thriving practice, legally and otherwise, because I could get sued. So I had an attorney. There's a whole process. It took like 9 months to shut it down. And I'm like, okay, the December 31st, so I stopped taking new referrals. I started taking Fridays off to have like self-care or me days or whatever. But unfortunately, my body had the accumulation that you talked about, Mark, over the last 18 years had really started to eat me alive. Even though I was working less and seeing less patients and trying to move them on, So a couple of months before retirement, I hit the wall. I remember I was meeting with a couple, and they had driven like an hour to come and see me. I wouldn't drive an hour to see myself. They would, honestly. And I was in so much misery, and I was looking at the clock going, okay, 40 more minutes, 30 more minutes. I must have looked so bad that they said, Dr. Elia, you don't look very good. I think we're going to go home. You need to go see somebody. And typically I was trying to say, no, trying to be the tough guy. But they're like, wrote me a check and they left. And I felt so guilty and bad. And you guys, as soon as they left, I literally crawled from my office to the restroom and I threw up from pain. Not because I had a stomach. And my wife heard me. It comes downstairs, looks at me, and she goes, honey, you're turning yellow, like jaundiced, which is not a good thing. And I had hepatitis when I was a kid in Greece. So I know what that meant. It meant something's off with my system. And she goes, we got to go to urgent care right now. Um, and typically, I would have said the classic kind of tough Greek guy, like, no, 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 I can handle it. I'll be better. I'll be fine. But again, the spirit said to me, you got to go now. So she drives me to the urgent care. Long story short, they do all kinds of tests. They're like, listen, we can't help you here. You got to go to the ER right now. So off to the ER we go. Long story short, 6 days, 6 long nights, 2 surgeries, and very painful. So now, when you're in the hospital for 6 nights after everybody leaves and so on, you have a lot of time to think and to ponder your life and to ponder, how am I here? And what I got the message was like, I never want to experience this again, ever again in my life. So when the surgeon came out before he discharged me from the hospital, I'm like, hey doc, I need to find out, why did this happen to me? He goes, that's easy. Either excessive drinking or excessive stress. So I had my gallbladder taken out, my bile duct was full of crap basically, and then my liver, there was a stenosis. My liver got overwhelmed, which is the reason why I started getting yellow. Your liver processes toxins, but if it's closed off like this, it had nowhere to go. So my liver fought for 2 or 3 days and then started shutting down. And the message, of course, is you lose your liver, you're done. Yeah. And my doctor said that if you had waited 1 or 2 more days, it's basically there's a certain point of no return. Well, if you don't think that's a wake-up call in life, so I came out of that. It took me like 6 months to physically recover, because the amazing thing about that organ is that the livers are amazing, actually. Even though they can get hurt, they can also get better. So, which is remarkable. It's a remarkable organ in the human body. Anyway, so as a result of that, and I realized never again will I ignore that voice, number one. And number two, don't make decisions based on fear. I should have heard the message a year ago. It was loud and clear, but I was afraid. And I made a decision to stick it out based on fear until I couldn't stick it out anymore. And I had the full classic burnout. But I was too arrogant, too blind, too fearful, too dumb, whatever you want to call it. And I ignored it for a full year. It literally almost cost my life. Well, coming out of that, it's been 20 years since that happened to me. And I'm fit. So chronologically, I'm 20 years older. And I have more gray hair. But physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, I'm better than I was 20 years ago. Yeah. Because I learned my lesson, even though it was a tough lesson to learn. Don't ignore that voice, whatever you call that voice.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I want to get to just another specific question. And then, Amy, I want to open it up for you to ask some questions too. But that voice was a little non-specific to you when it says, go share your light. You need to spread your light more. How do you decide what that means for you?
I didn't know. I didn't know. And my first question initially was, well, how do I make money doing that? Because I still have a home, we had a new mortgage with kids and so on. But it wasn't any more specific than that. Initially, I thought, well, maybe you should just write a book and become your #1 bestseller. You go to Oprah and then, whatever. It didn't quite happen that way. But over the last 20 years, what has happened, I've done over 350 podcasts. I travel the world and speak on wellness and happiness and so on, and the books and the lectures and so on. It did happen. I have spread the light to a lot more people. I didn't go to Oprah, and I didn't make millions and millions like I thought it was going to happen, but I've had a really good life, and I love what I do. I'll never get burned out because I'm in full alignment with what I was meant to do. Just like I was for the first 16 years as a clinical psychologist, because I loved it, but it wasn't sustainable, and I wish I had a better story to say. I wish I had made the transition just like that because I'm so smart. That's not how it happened. It was a struggle, but it worked out, and it is working out. It's not over yet. The final chapter hasn't been written yet.
You're still writing.
I'm still writing, and I think this movie, with Kevin Smith, like you said, for such a time as this, and producing it for him, I believe is a legacy statement. Because if we can inspire kindness, compassion, love, collaboration, openness, um, the world, all over the world, then it's so worth it. And I'm very excited about this. Is the project I'm so excited about it. Every day, we're on the phone every day. I eat, sleep, think about it. So, and we're getting close. We'll be done by the end of August. And then we're going to submit it to Sundance, which is the biggest film festival in the United States, which, interestingly enough, moved after 40 years being in Utah. He moved to Boulder, Colorado, is where I live. So I feel like, the stars are aligned in a lot of ways. Isn't that beautiful?
It moved from where I live to where you live.
Right.
Amy, jump in here. I know you have some questions.
Yeah, I want to talk about the spreading the light, and I certainly don't want to take you away from such a time as this. We've heard a little bit about it from Kevin, but
you'll hear more.
But I want to hear from you, spreading the light. Like what's some of what you've seen as a result? I really want you to share some stories, because we've heard about the pain, right? But in spreading the light, there's such beauty, there's such goodness, right? And I'd love for you to share what this bravery of you to transition, right? This ability for you to move to this different path, right? You could have stayed stubborn. You really could have. I mean, I really think that needs to be
because you would have taken me out of this life, Amy.
And right, but there
I
are
wish
people that choose that, right? Sadly,
you're very kind, but you're very kind, but I wish I was that smart. I wish I had done it differently. I would have a different story to tell. I feel like I was physically forced. I was this close, like I said, this close, because I was so stubborn. But mostly out of fear, not because or maybe ego too, right? The doctor and the psychologist. I mean, that's too probably played, because that's how I was known for all those years. But I love people. My wife will tell me this. She says, "How do you love so many people so big?" I'm like, "I don't know, honey. It's so easy." And I feel like I have this gift, God-given gift. I know where it comes from, to see the goodness in people, to see the potential in people, most times long before they can see it in themselves, and then to be able to articulate or to convey to them what I see, even though at first they don't buy it or they don't see it because they're down on their luck or whatever. But eventually get them to get to see, and that's a beautiful thing. And to help people practice self-forgiveness, which I do frequently, because to me self-forgiveness is the ultimate act of self-compassion, bar none. And by the way, it's mostly missing in action with people, because people just don't know how to do it. They don't believe they deserve it. A lot of people carry a lot of shame and guilt that prevents them from seeing the light in themselves. So self-forgiveness is a huge part of helping people see their own light.
I want to spotlight something that you said, and that's to see the goodness. When I think about kindness, when I think about what I call silencing the judger, we don't know somebody else's story, but sometimes we make something up, and therefore it creates a barrier, and we're justified in our behaviors and our actions and our words, which I do not believe in. Take us to see the goodness. How this has to be teachable. What are 1, 2, 3 things that somebody could do that's struggling to see the goodness but wants to do that? What can they do to begin to make that shift?
You mean see the goodness in themselves?
See the goodness in themselves and see the goodness in other people as well.
But that's connected, though.
Right.
Because if you see the goodness in yourself, it's very easy to look and find the goodness in other people. I have a great relationship with a guy named Elia Gourgouris. He's one of my best friends.
I like that guy.
I like that guy too.
What I mean? Yeah. So as a result of that, and I've read philosophies, Western, Eastern philosophy, so on. We project all kinds of things. If I'm dark, because projection is one of the most common, that and denial and repression, the most common self-defense mechanisms. We can project all kinds of things. if I'm dark inside, if I'm angry inside, and because I'm not in touch with it, I'm going to project it onto, Mark and Amy, why are you so angry? When it's me. You guys are like perfect. But if I'm good within myself and love, and I don't mean it in a narcissistic way, I mean in a healthy, someone who practices self-care, which by the way, for me, self-care, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, post-pandemic, non-negotiable. I'm even better than I was 10, 15 years ago in terms of self-care. Then if my batteries are full, then it's very easy to give to other people, to serve other people, to practice kindness endlessly, and not random acts of kindness, mindful, consistent, deliberate, conscious acts of kindness. It's easy to do because my batteries are full. If my phone has run out of juice, right here, I can't communicate with anybody. If I'm running empty like I was 20 years ago when I got burned out, I couldn't help anybody. In the end, I couldn't help anybody, could I? My actual client, my patients left because I was so sick, like physically left my office. That's an extreme example. So when my batteries are full and I'm feeling good about myself, I can also project and see the goodness in other people. And I had, my dissertation was on Alcoholics Anonymous, so I knew a lot about addictions, 12-step programs and so on. So I had a lot of addicts that came to, and they were classic, my name is John and I'm an alcoholic. So talk about the goodness in other people. I would stop them right there, first session. And I'm like, actually, that's not true. And they're like, what? I'm like, you're so much more than that. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a son, you're a cousin, you're a nephew, you're an uncle, you're a brother-in-law, whatever. You're a friend, you have your professional, you're all of these things. And yes, John, alcohol is wreaking havoc in your life. I'm not denying that, I'm not minimizing that, but that's not all you are. And on a spiritual level, even you're a child of God. I'm like, if you want to take it on that level for me. So, and at first they're like, well, I don't think you understand addiction. And I'm like, I don't think you understand your humanity. Well, I don't think you understand what I've done. I said, I don't care what you've done. And it doesn't matter to me what you've done. All I see is in front of me is someone who's struggling with an addiction, a broken person, a brother or a sister who just needs to heal and forgive others and forgive self and get out of being a victim. And so part of my process to have them see the light is to empower them to make those choices. And as they sober up and get better, of course, they start feeling a little bit of that self-worth and self-esteem. And when you project that over several months or several years, those lives are transformed. And now they get to be an example and they get to live in the light because they practice self-compassion and then compassion towards others. I mean, that's the last step of the 12 steps is, of course, to give back, right? I'm sober, I'm good. Now I'm going to give back. I'm going to help somebody else out as a result of my own transformational journey.
Mm-hmm. I love the beauty of that. What I really saw is that you help them to see their wholeness, right? To not reduce them down to one thing, but to see their wholeness. Mark, I know you want to get in here.
Yeah, there was just one other point that Dr. Elia made that I wanted to follow up with. You said most people are doing self-forgiveness wrong.
They're not even doing it.
Okay, so explore that a little bit.
Yeah,
even if people feel like they are doing self-forgiveness, I mean, I get the point that maybe they're not doing it at all. But how do we do self-forgiveness wrong in some cases?
And I'll share with you, interesting enough, with all these addicts, so we got a years of sobriety, they're doing great, they're thriving in work and so on. Typically I would have one last interview. And I'm using addicts as an example. That happens with everybody else. So, John, congratulations, you're doing great and so on. You think your spouse has forgiven you? Yes. Your kids? Yes. Your boss? Yes. Whatever. And we go on God, whatever. Have you forgiven yourself? You guys, this is the best answer that I ever received, but not the most common. The best answer was, I'm working on it. That was the best answer. The most common answer, however, is no. And I'm like, okay, John, well, we're not done yet. Close the door and sit back on the couch here because we have a little bit more work to do. And the process that I take him through is basically I have people write a list of all the things, bullet points, of all the things you haven't forgiven yourself for. Could be 5 things on the list, 15 or 50. I don't really care. I've had people that have things on their list that go back over half a century. Once they're done with their list, I have them put a number next to it from 1 through 10. 1 is, we went out to dinner with some colleagues yesterday and drank some red wine, but I spilled some red wine on my white shirt and was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. That's a 1. A 10 is, I actually killed somebody. Because oftentimes people say on the self-forgiveness, that's a 10. I'm like, no, did you actually murder a human being? No. Well, then it's not a 10. It could be a 7 or an 8. And then we begin to go through the process. For most people, we start off with the 1s, 2s, and 3s to gain some momentum, to have some success. And then we move on to the tougher things that are usually older, by the way, the 6, 7s, and 8s, and so on. And those sessions are so spiritual and so special. And when we're done, we actually have a process where we burn the paper that was written on. Symbolically, have the fumes go up towards heaven. You're done. And when they leave my office and we hug it out, you know what they say? Almost everyone. First of all, I feel like 100 pounds or 1,000 pounds lighter than I did when I walked into your office. That's number 1. And number 2 is a slight regret. I wish I had done this years ago. And I'm like, I know. Because when we don't forgive ourselves, it's like putting on a backpack full of rocks, pebbles, stones, boulders, before we even brush our teeth every morning, that has all the resentments, the lack of forgiveness, all the things that we're ashamed of, guilty of, and so on. And that's how we walk through life, this invisible backpack that weighs us down. And when I say people have things on their backpacks that go beyond 50 years, that's not an exaggeration. So imagine living through life and going through life. And this, by the way, comes very easy to me. It always has. And my wife says, how do you not have anything on your forgiveness list? How do you do it? I said, you know what? Here's the secret. I don't take myself too seriously. That's it. I don't take myself. And now I have an excuse because I'm getting older. I'm like, oh, old age. I can excuse anything now, pretty much. You know what I mean? I don't take myself that seriously. And therefore, I'm much happier that way. But it wasn't always so because I used to be a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And that makes a huge difference.
Recovering perfectionist.
Yes, if there was a 12-step program, Amy, called Perfectionism, I would be on the front row. Yes, ma'am.
And I think you would have a lot of good company in that class.
Yes.
This has been incredible. I know Mark and I want to talk with you longer, but we are going to transition, and I'm going to ask you to please share, how can people find you?
LinkedIn, that's one way to do it. Instagram, Facebook. My website is drofhappiness.com. It's a new website, so I just launched it. So, or the older one, dreliagourgouris.com. That's there. I have both websites now, but I am really passionate about helping people find their light and keep it. It's not just finding it temporarily. You know what I mean? You want to keep it and keep it for the rest of your life. Because I sincerely believe that when the happiest version of you is walking around on this planet, it makes this world a better place.
100%. 100%.
Because happiness is, infectious. Happy people are attractive. Energy-wise, I mean. People are attracted to people who are happy. So that's it.
I see that all the time. And just all the traveling I do, I go to the airports and I see people that I look at and go, that's a fairly attractive person, but they look miserable.
Right.
And that diminishes their, and then I see other people that are like fairly average looking. It's like they look so great because they're just, the happiness exudes from them.
I have a story about that. I don't know how much time we have. I want to share with you about that.
Share it, please.
Okay. So early on in our marriage, we were in a spiritual setting, my wife and I, and we noticed this lady that must have been at least 100 years old. I've never seen more wrinkles on a human face than this lady. I kid you not. And she looked at us and we looked at her, and she had white hair and these piercing blue eyes, and her countenance was so beautiful. Like she was one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen. She's probably like 98, 99 years old. So at some point we started to talk, and I kept looking at her, and she was glowing. And at some point I stopped and I said, ma'am, what is the secret to your success? And I was in my 30s then, but I wanted to know, because if somebody's so close to the other side, they're about to exit, and they've lived here for 100 years, and it's so beautiful, and their spirit is so bright, and their countenance is so bright. That's the real happiness expert, not me. So I asked her, and she goes, "Oh, sweetheart," she goes, just so, goes, "All you need in life is to have an attitude of gratitude, and that's the secret to success." And I know that we've heard that phrase, and it rhymes, and it's cute, it's adorable, have attitude of gratitude. But it came from the absolute expert on happiness, this 100-year-old woman that said that to me in my 30s, and I've never forgotten her. She's obviously not alive now, because she would be 130. But she taught me the most beautiful lesson in such a simple way, just by the way that she looked.
Yeah.
And that's it. What a lesson. What a lesson.
It's one thing to use that attitude of gratitude as a quip. It's another to live it.
And to see it in her eyes, like somebody who's 100 years old.
That's where you see it in reality.
The most beautiful woman I've ever seen. No, nothing about my wife, but 100 years old. This woman glowed. She was glowing.
Dr. Elia, we are at the end of our time. I want to end with what we end with all of our guests. And I want to give you just the last few minutes here to just share with our compassionators, our listeners, what is one tip you would give to them that they can use this week to infuse compassion into their lives?
So normally I would say, do not procrastinate your happiness. Forget all the whens, like when I'm in the right place, when I'm in the right relationship, when I have enough money, when I retire, when I have kids, when my kids grow up, forget all that stuff. There are no guarantees that any of us will be here tomorrow. But because of the conversation we had today, I'm going to switch it a little bit and say, do not procrastinate practicing self-forgiveness. Mm. Remember, self-forgiveness, Gandhi called forgiveness the attribute of the strong. I would say forgiveness equals freedom. And self-forgiveness specifically is the ultimate act of self-compassion. So do give yourself that gift. And do it, whether you call it a trusted advisor, a therapist, a coach, a friend, but go through the process just the way I just described it, and you'll see what a difference it will make in your life. I guarantee it. And I'm here if you need help. If you want to start coaching it around that, happy to help.
That's awesome. We will have those links of how you can find Dr. Elia in our show notes so that you can go to him for help if you want that help. I have a feeling that this is an episode people are going to listen to 2 or 3 times because there were so many golden points in there that are going to be helpful for people. Dr. Elia, thank you. Bless you for the work that you're doing, for the time that you spent with us here, for the goodness you're bringing into the world, for following that call. And to our compassionators, thanks for joining us. Go out there, practice that self-forgiveness. Don't procrastinate your happiness.
Amy and Mark, it's a real pleasure always, always. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We'll see you
Thanks,
on
everybody.
our next episode.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.